because those systems can do so much. You said, right, you can feed this and that. So is lip sync the next stage for this? So if you can feed all the formality information, duration information, etc., can you ask these systems actually to detect the VZemes or like the phonemes that are out there and say, okay, create a translation that matches actually the VZemes that are there, or the phonemes, if you want to be more specific?
Yes, we are. Let me start a bit earlier with just simpler length control. We are on the way there towards lip sync. Yes. So first we created systems which have length control, where you can say make the translation shorter or longer or even shorter, like extra short. So there are several levels that we defined. And
could you go into, sorry, could you go into details, because you say length control, and I know some systems produce a translation that is, I don't know, up to 10% the same length that is measured, I don't know, in the number of characters, right? So that's different to measuring.
Oh, that's different. You basically, the system learns from data how to translate shorter, meaning that maybe some not so important information is omitted, or there's the different wording is selected so that fewer words or characters are used. So this is something that we do also just for text translation, if necessary, for subtitling. Then the next step was also to say, okay, we can try that a little bit iteratively. So if for a certain utterance, there is enough time to just use the normal translation without requesting a shorter one, then we do it without. And then if we say, okay, we need a shorter and even shorter translation here, then we select a different hypothesis from the MT output based on that. And then the current situation where we are now is that we can more explicitly really control that we are within the same range. And then the question is, what units do you measure in this range in? Yeah, so it used to be that people measured characters. I think from our experience, it's better to count the syllables, because syllables are defined by vowels, and vowels are basically what defines the length also of the utterance. So now we were able to create a machine translation system which really tries to output a translation with the same number of vowels. And this works quite well, especially for shorter segments. It's really important that, let's say, if somebody says yes, okay, then the translation should also be this short and not be something like certainly with 3 syllables or something like that. Yeah, for whatever reason. So this already works. And then the next logical step would be to say, yes, we can try to teach the system to use the wording in the translation that would have these VZemes or phonemes also in the right way. So like an O or R and E, and also, you know, that the mouth then makes the proper movement. So you know better basically what it is.
Yeah, the way I understand it, but correct me if I'm wrong, there are like 2 ways of achieving lip sync, really. And one way, which I think the industry is going currently, and I'm not sure if that's the right way, would be visually manipulating the video, but that results in multiple streams, a separate stream for each language, which might be problematic for lots of different reasons, for companies, for streaming companies, etc. So is there another way where you actually automatically modify the translation? So this is something we started talking about.
So this is the active research. There is, I think there was some publications about that already, but it is an active research area. And there are several questions here. So we need to find the balance between the translation quality and fulfilling these constraints on the phonemes and VZemes. So it is very important that, because we can teach the system a lot of things. So for example, we also teach the system to fulfill the reading speed for subtitling. And we see that it often works well, but often if you make it too strict, then a lot information is lost, and important information may be lost in translation. And people don't like that if they need to edit this translation, for example. So what we see also from our experiments on analyzing human dubbing is that it's actually not always that the dubs follow these instructions, so to say, even in terms of the number of syllables. So in a lot of cases, we see, especially for longer utterances, that this is not followed. So they put more syllables in the German version, and it still looks nice. So it is a lot is about really human perception. And one of the aspects, I think, of the human perception is that the actual translation should be understandable and should not look awkward, or should not be heard as awkward, which would then make it unnatural. Whereas when it is natural, maybe the aspect of lip syncing is not as important, because people just, think, oh, they don't think about it, let's say. They just listen to it, and it's natural, so they don't care about the lip sync.
Yeah, that's a very important point. You have to keep track of several things. You cannot only go for lip sync. You have to go, for, say, basically in the essence, it's user experience. So you combine the lip sync, the speed of the pronunciation, the naturalness of the translation, and how does it fit to the context and what has been said before or so. And basically, so you have to optimize with regards to several criteria at the same time. But anyway, under the hood, in how this works, it's anyway some optimization thing. So we can do that in principle, but we are too busy right now with other problems.
Yes.
Okay.
So a lot of this is research problem. And one more aspect, which is, I think, important, is the detection of on and off screen. So when the lips, the face is visible, we really need this technology to work, because then it gives the freedom for MT and also for the other components, basically, to use whatever words, whatever phonemes in the off-screen sections, and then in the on-screen to have these constraints. And it is also difficult because we translate full sentences, but it may be that the on-screen section is only, covering the part of a sentence. So we need to have a constraint for the sentence, but then maybe we still need to be flexible and so on. So you see that there's a lot of research questions which are currently still active, and people
so
are trying to
exciting.
address them, not just the DubTech, but everywhere.
It's a big toolbox, and there's a lot that has to be done.
I would like to ask one question that we didn't agree on in the script, so maybe we can cut it out if you don't think it's.
I have a question as well. Wait.
Yeah. Okay, let me just ask this one, and I'll shut up till the rest of the interview. You both mentioned subtitling, right? And it seems that a lot of companies actually started with subtitling, with ASR and blah, blah, blah. And for me, I've looked through a number of these tools, and AI dubbing for many of them is simply the reading out of the subtitles that were automatically generated.
I hope that many competitors do that way. Yes.
So how would you want to respond? Is your system different? Is that a good way? Should they be different?
There is difference. So there is similarities and differences. So the length control aspect is similar, but for dubbing, as I said, we do the syllable-based length control right now. For dubbing, we also do what is called prosodic MT, where exactly for the cases where people pause in the middle of a sentence, we also need to make sure that these pauses are natural. So first of all, in terms of timing, they have to be in the right position, but also because we use the context, they have to be natural also in the target language. And it is especially difficult if there is reordering going on, the sentence structure is different. There are things like people pause for a reason in a movie where maybe something is introduced visually in the next scene. So if whatever the sentence structure requires, for example, for the verb to be at the end, this is sometimes used in the movie, and this has to be like that. And when you translate, you cannot put it in front, because then the scene has not appeared yet, which introduces this.
But I hope that people who get out of your education know that you should not, how can I say that language that is written and language that is spoken is not exactly the same, right? So
Yes. So this is one aspect is really the pauses, how we transfer. This is different from subtitling. And the other thing is what I said already related to text to speech, that maybe you would like to produce already spoken forms of numbers and so on, or we do something special to map digits to spoken forms and so on.
Yeah, what you realize is, if someone thinks it's simple, they have probably overlooked something, right? So if you try to produce real high quality, there's a lot of detail you have to take care of. But that's a big advantage that we have in, if it has to be perfect, there is always the human in the loop. So we probably have to focus on the most relevant challenges, like say reading speed or length of the translation, and say proper translation, like addressing the formality level and so on and so on. So that's it's really helpful if you have that in the system.
Great, thank you, Łukasz.
I just wanted to follow up quickly on two things. So Volker, you said this obviously, like, spoken language is not the same as written language, and Evgeny was explaining how you're working towards lip sync and having your MT system be aware of lip sync. So I'm really curious, as a linguist, as a not a tech person, my understanding is, for instance, that with generative intelligence that's text-based, with large language models, I think they are not really aware of the phonetic value of the text. So they are aware of the characters, they generate text, but they're not aware of what's this text phonetically, what's the phonetic value of it, what would it sound like. So am I correct in understanding that you're able to make your MT system be aware of what's the phonetic value of the text?
Yeah.
Yes. That's basically. So first of all, we can map the words to their phonemes. There is also research on just phoneme-based MT in some way. But in this case, we just need the information for each word. What are the actual phonemes used? And then basically this information is additionally encoded as feature, and the MT system can then decide from all the possible translations what is the best one in terms of these phonemes for the given position. It has to match the prescribed sequence that we give to it, but at the same time the criterion is also just to have a good translation. So this criterion remains. And the challenge is how to train such a system that those two criteria are balanced, basically.
Yeah. By the way, that's exactly what dubbing trainers say when they train people. They would say this is a balancing act. Volker said that it is about user experience. So dubbing trainers, they'll say it's a balancing act. We cannot just focus on perfect lip sync. We also have to take other things into account, such as the text sounding idiomatic, sounding natural, and ultimately creating a good experience for the viewer.
Yeah. The thing with lip sync, it's really strange. I think it's an important aspect, but it's not the only one. And it's basically the first thing that comes up when you talk about automatic dubbing. Can you do lip sync? And yeah, it's valid, but it's one out of several criteria. And by the way, where you have to see technology from two angles, right? When you pick a technology, you have to be very critical. Can it do this? And you evaluate it, and you evaluate different vendors, etc., etc. But once you work with it, then you have to be on the side of the technology. Then you have to think about, what can I do to make it better? So the result is good. For example, pick the right content. Pick documentaries, and not when people fight and there is emotion and crosstalk and people talking over each other. So if you have decided to do something, then start with the low-hanging fruit. Don't start with the difficult stuff, right? And the point is, once the processes are running and people are used to using it and know how to use the system, etc., a year takes by. I mean, it takes half a year until the lawyers have signed the documents, right? And after a year, it's already better. So really start with something simple, and then increase the breadth. That's
exactly.
what I would
So
recommend. No, don't stumble into it. Don't say from tomorrow we do everything automatic or so. That's a recipe for disaster. And also thinking commercially. So much of the usage is, of course, commercially driven. It is not necessary to do everything fully automatic. You can do it with a larger part of the content, then you save money. Then you can put a lot of effort into the high value content. I mean, you have it elsewhere in life. There is a lot of fast food restaurants or so, but you still want to go out fancy. And then, of course, you could argue you can have it cheaper, but you don't want to, right? You want the best movies to be of excellent quality. But at the same time, you might want to watch maybe Chinese or Arabic people would like to watch a football game automatically dubbed and not caring whether one word is wrong from time to time, right? So there is really space for several things in parallel.